What is going on, all my Royal Beasts? Thomas Bryant back here, Royal Beast Gamer, and the video that you all have been waiting for has finally arrived. My review for Sonic Frontiers. Now this game right here is special for me. It got me really excited for Sonic the Hedgehog again. I said the same thing so many times in my streams. I hadn't been excited for a Sonic the Hedgehog game in over a decade. 11 years to be exact. The last Sonic the Hedgehog game I was truly excited for on this level was 2011's Sonic Generations. It wasn't a smooth transition to get to this point though. It's been 5 years since the last main Sonic game, Sonic Forces, and that game, it left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, including Sega and Sonic Team. Luckily, they've learned from their mistakes, sort of, and we got a game that I'm actually proud of as a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. Now the marketing for this game was absolutely abysmal. Many American fans were left feeling jaded since other countries were getting to have the demo on display to try the game out. Yeah, it was cool to see, and IGN covered the game during the month of June, and it was one of the most pathetic coverages that almost did more harm than good for the game, at least in the eyes of the fans, but that's behind us now. Let's get into the real meat of this review. Ever since Sonic Frontiers was first shown off by IGN in June, Sonic Team has been touting the game as the first ever open zone Sonic the Hedgehog game. A lot of fans, including myself, were initially confused by that term, and honestly, it doesn't really become clear until you actually play the game. Think back to the classic Sonic the Hedgehog game. You started out in Green Hill Zone, and you would go through 2 or 3 acts before you beat that zone or world. The open zone is essentially an open world. However, since not all activities are available on one island, it's considered as a zone. There are 5 islands in the game, 3 of which I'll touch upon at this time, the last 2 I'll come back to. The first island that you start on in Sonic Frontiers is called Kronos Island. It's a beautiful island filled with lush grass and plants as well as rivers and waterfalls. The enemies on this island are pretty simple to kill, and it's the biggest island out of all of them. The second island, and my personal favorite, is Ares Island. It's pretty much a desert wasteland, but the environment is so fun to travel along. It's filled with different canyons and craters. The enemies get a bit more difficult, and it has the best Titan fight in my opinion. The third island, definitely my least favorite of them all, is Chaos Island. This island has even tougher enemies and is pretty bare. It looks like a soulless, colorless world built around a volcano. The reason why this island is my least favorite is because of all of the forced 2D sections. It really ruins the pace of the so-called open zone. To open up the map of each island, you'll have to find these signs that have a question mark on them. There's usually a puzzle or a mini game that needs to be completed, then you'll get access to certain points. However, to move on to the next island, you don't need to open up the map completely. So you may be wondering, what is there to do in the open zone? The only thing that should be done in a Sonic game. Run! The absolute best part about the open zone is the traversal. I love running around the different islands as Sonic. Being able to run at super high speeds freely in a Sonic game is something I've wanted for so long, and Sonic Frontiers does it so well. There are of course things that can be worked on. It does get a bit annoying when I'm trying to get to a destination as fast as possible, then I get flown into the air from a rock or something. Yes, I get to do some amazing tricks, but it happens way too often. The terrain really needs to be worked on because it can get in the way, especially when trying to perform side loop at certain points. While running around, you'll need to collect different things. In order to save Sonic's friends, then be able to speak with them, you'll need to collect memory tokens. These tokens are what's used to be able to communicate and move forward with the story. Amy's token is a pink heart, Knuckles' token is an orange war medal, and Tails' token is a yellow wrench. Sage has memory tokens to speak with her on the last island, but for some reason they're literally the exact same as Amy's. You can get these tokens by side looping the ground you're running on, performing in the air while exploring the islands and defeating enemies. There are other collectibles in the open zone as well. You can find creatures called Cocos. Think the adorable creatures for the next era of Sonic, like Chow. Finding them, then bringing them to the Elder Coco will allow you to level up your speed or your ring max count. Just be prepared to grind for the level up. It takes 20 Coco to level up one or the other, and you can only go up one level at a time. Hermit Coco, on the other hand, is great. He gets straight to the point and upgrades your strength and defense all at once based on the amount of seeds you have. The seeds in question are the red seeds of power and the blue seeds of defense. They do come in handy, and it's a lot easier leveling those skills up for Sonic. There are also portal gears. These are used to get into cyberspace and try to obtain vault keys. Vault keys can also be found by running around the island, but the fastest way to get them is by doing these cyberspace levels or Big's fishing spot. There are 30 cyberspace levels in total, 7 on the first 3 islands and 9 on the last 3. The cyberspace levels has 4 themes: Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary, and a new city level. Honestly, the city levels are the best. The other themes are okay, but most of the levels tend to follow the format of an older stage. You can find stages that resemble Radical Highway and Metal Harbor from Sonic Adventure 2, others like one of the daytime stages from Shunan in Sonic Unleashed. The Adventure 2 levels are by far the most fun out of the levels, but to be completely honest, I don't like cyberspace at all. The controls and physics are way out of whack and is easily the worst part of Sonic Frontiers for me. Now, I tried to hold it off for long enough, but I can't ignore the elephant in the room any longer. Sonic Team has been doing something for the past decade. Something that frankly needs to stop completely. Most fans that I've seen are just as tired of it as I am. Sonic Team loves to rehash the stages from the classic games. It was awesome in Generations, when it made sense. Of course, they're doing it to try and bring that nostalgic feeling to the forefront, but it's coming off as lazy. Sonic Team decides to take it a step further in Sonic Frontiers. Not only do they reuse the older stages for the cyberspace levels, an entire open zone is reused not once, but twice. If you recall, I mentioned that the Starfall Islands are comprised of 5 islands. Chronos, Ares, and Chaos are all completely their own. The last 2 islands are named Rhea and Uranos. These 2 islands are carbon copies of Chronos Island. So instead of actually having 5 original islands, you only have 3. It's completely lazy and honestly disrespectful to the fans. It made no sense story-wise and really looks like the budget just fell off after Chaos Island. It's not all bad. Rhea Island consists of a small island with 6 towers on it. On this island, Sonic is tasked into stopping all of the towers and completely breaking the barrier between cyberspace and their world. So your job is to climb those towers. That's it. It's a whole lot of platforming and a lot of fun to speed through. It's also extremely easy to fall off while climbing, so be careful while speeding through. There are no enemies on the ground, but you'll encounter some as you climb. It's probably the easiest island you'll go through. My favorite part about this island is flinging myself off the top of the towers, then doing tricks all the way down. You can get some great XP points that way. Uranos Island is closest to Chronos Island, but on ultimate difficulty. Although it's lazy, it's still pretty fun to traverse and fight the really hard enemies and guardians. Unfortunately, what holds it back is the fact that you have to collect so many memory tokens just to speak to Sage like 2 or 3 times. It's really a grind fest and takes so much longer to beat than it should. Another thing to look out for is the interaction cutscenes. Every single time you get vault keys, a Chaos Emerald, or go and try to talk to someone, it's the same exact cutscenes. Sonic Team was smart enough to let us skip them because going through those cutscenes over and over on each island is definitely not something that I stuck around for. Another instance of Sonic Team recycling resources, but it's minuscule so it doesn't affect the game as much. Luckily, Sonic's moveset in this game isn't completely recycled. Sonic's moveset is one of my favorites out of all his games. They finally added combat to Sonic's moves without there being some sort of gimmick like the Werehog. And I'm not trying to knock Sonic the Werehog, I absolutely love him. However, the moves were clunky and the fights were so long that it just got tedious after a while. That's not a concern in Sonic Frontiers. The fights typically don't last longer than a couple of minutes, most of the time way less. The different moves that Sonic has are actually fun to use and you can pull off some amazing combos. You start off the game with just a homing attack and some punches and kicks, but nothing too fancy. As you progress through the story and the islands, you gain XP points, which allow you to unlock more skills, and the skills honestly do get better. Another new addition to Sonic Frontiers is a skill tree. Sure, it's not as complex as some other games, but once again, it works for Sonic Frontiers. The biggest addition to Sonic Frontiers is the Psyloop ability. It was part of the very first teaser that we got a year and a half ago for Sonic Frontiers. This move creates a digitized path around Sonic as he runs, and if you create a loop, a powerful updraft is done. This is especially useful when it comes to fighting enemies or even farming rings. You can also create a figure 8 and it gives you unlimited boost for a short period of time. There are some other moves that make a comeback in Sonic Frontiers as well. Sonic once again has the bounce move. This time if you hold the bounce button, Sonic will do 3 bounces simultaneously, with the third bounce giving off an electric shockwave. The drop dash makes another return, but I barely used it. To use it, you have to do a double jump, then hold the jump button as he's landing. The mechanic is a bit clunky, so I really tend to ignore it, but it all flows together to really enhance Sonic's moveset. Now let me talk about the story for a quick minute here. For the past decade, we've had to endure trash writing and horrible jokes in Sonic games. It was becoming unbearable. It then came out that Ian Flynn, writer for the Sonic the Hedgehog Archie and IDW comics, was going to be writing this story as well. The community rejoiced because we were finally going to get a good story again after so long. I always said that if the games had the same story as the comics, it would be top notch. Now, the story isn't perfect, but it's definitely one of the deepest and serious stories in a long while. It starts with Eggman attempting to harness the power of the Ancients and getting sucked into cyberspace. Sonic, Tails, and Amy are also heading to the Starfall Islands to find the Chaos Emeralds. Along the way, the tornado hits a storm and all 3 of them get separated. Sonic arrives in cyberspace, and after escaping the first level, he wakes up on Kronos Island. A voice from the sky tells Sonic that he is the key and instructs him to break the chains between cyberspace and this dimension. Thinking that this will save his friends, he goes along with it. Throughout the story, you end up saving Amy on Kronos Island and Tails on Chaos Island, while Knuckles can be found on Ares Island. You can check out the Sonic Frontiers prologue to find out how Knuckles ended up on the Starfall Islands. Eggman is stuck in cyberspace the entire time pretty much, but he has an AI named Sage that is working to stop Sonic from opening up cyberspace. Honestly, this was one of my peeves. I understand the story needs to go on, but logically, if Sage had just told Sonic what was going on, then it wouldn't have been as difficult. But once again, the story must go on. You'll help the Cocos a lot throughout the story as you uncover the mystery of the Ancients and how they're tied to the Chaos Emeralds. It's an amazing story that's very much like the ones from the 2000 era of Sonic games. Honestly, this story is reminiscent of Sonic Adventure for me, learning more about an ancient civilization, who they were, and who they are today. Because if you pay attention, you'll find out that they're not as new to the Sonic universe as we think. We've been interacting with them for decades now. Since Eggman is stuck in cyberspace, the enemies aren't going to be the same types of badniks that Sonic has fought over the years. These enemies are created by Eggman's AI when he first arrives on the Starfall Islands, and there are 3 different classifications of enemies: Normal, Guardians, and Titans. The normal enemies are just what the name sounds like, enemies that you would fight like normal. There are different types, with the most common being soldiers. These enemies get more difficult as you progress through the islands, with the last island containing the hardest enemies. And it's not that they're actually hard to beat, they just require more hits and you have to actually dodge and parry, something that I still struggle with myself. These enemies also drop different things when you defeat them. You'll get XP points, memory tokens, vault keys, and more. Guardians are enemies that protect a certain area and you have to actually think in order to beat some of these enemies. I like almost all of the Guardian fights in this game. The best Guardians are the Ninja type Guardians, Ninja, Shinobi, and Kunoichi. These Guardians provide the kind of high-speed fighting action that Sonic fans are wanting. On the flip side, you also have to deal with Shark and Ares Island. This Guardian is the most tedious only because you don't fight it outright. You have to ride its tail for a little bit before Sonic finds its opening, and it just seems like it goes on for too long. Each Guardian that is defeated will drop a portal gear. Titans are the main bosses for each island. In order to move on to the next island, you have to defeat all of the Titans. There are 4 Titans in total in this game. Giganto, the first Titan that you encounter. The fight against this Titan is pretty basic and easy to get through. You might have to parry at times, but you shouldn't struggle against this one unless you're my brother. Wyvern, the Gold Titan on the Ares Island. This Titan fight is my favorite. You're flying at high speeds, trying to catch up to Wyvern all while dodging and parrying the missiles that are thrown at you. Not a hard one again, just need to be able to move quick enough, which is perfect for a Sonic game. Knight, the Titan of Chaos Island. Knight fights with a sword and shield. This fight has one of the rawest supersonic moments and almost overtakes Wyvern for my favorite Titan fight. This one definitely requires skill and good use of your brain to beat it. Supreme, the last Titan. Supreme is meant to be the most powerful, but it's really just the most annoying. It has these machines around it. You have to destroy them by doing some kind of special move like stomp or a homing shot. And if you don't, then each time you parry Supreme's attacks, you'll still get shot back by those machines. It really took the fun out of it. There's one more enemy that I'll speak of here. To get to this enemy, the game difficulty has to be set on hard before grabbing the 6th Chaos Emerald on Oranos Island. This game also brings back true final bosses. However, the final boss in Sonic Frontiers is easily one of the worst final bosses in any Sonic game for me. The final boss is some being called the End, which takes the form of a planet. Now, throughout the game, you do different hacking jobs and complete them with some kind of bootleg Space Invaders minigame. The fight against the End is just a full-scale version of the minigame, and it is a complete letdown. You control Supreme, which is actually just Sage in Supreme's body, and constantly shoot at the End while also destroying any energy shots that come your way. After you've gotten the End's health down enough, there will be a couple of quick time events to do with Supersonic, then it's over. I like the End a lot as a character. His dialogue is some of the best in the series and really gives an overarching narrative to the Sonic series as we come to find out that he's basically behind everything that's happened in the Sonic series up until now. I just wish the fight had been different. It's really long and mundane, and I hope they do much better in the next game. Earlier this year, we went on a roller coaster ride when Roger Craig Smith announced he was no longer voicing Sonic. Many fans were happy as they didn't feel like Roger fit Sonic, but have since changed their mind on that point. Sonic Frontiers has a new voice direction for Roger Sonic. He has a deep voice due to the serious tone and nature, however it still doesn't work for me. I can't close my eyes and listen to the voice and automatically think, oh, that's Sonic the Hedgehog. But that's just me, and I don't blame Roger at all. It's the directors that have control over that. Dave B. Mitchell is back as Knuckles. Having debuted in Team Sonic Racing in 2019, I hated his performance, but he's definitely improved and I really enjoyed his performance this time around, both in the game and the prologue. Cindy Robinson is also back with Amy and she still sounds great. I remember when Cindy first started voicing Amy, I absolutely hated it. They had her sounding like a drugged up Minnie Mouse, but it seems after Sonic Boom, that's the direction they're taking and it's worked ever since. Dave and Cindy are also responsible for bringing the End to life. Dave voices the male voice for the End and Cindy voices the female voice. I have to say, they both did an absolutely marvelous job. As stated before, the End's dialogue is some of my favorite, and that's really because of the tone and how the actors deliver the lines. Colleen O'Shaughnessy is once again voicing our favorite two-tailed fox. I have no bad things to say about her performance whatsoever because literally every time she voices Tails, she does a phenomenal job. Every single time. She's the equivalent of Mike Pollock's Dr. Eggman with how great they are for the character. Speaking of Mike, he once again has a flawless performance for Dr. Eggman. I absolutely love hearing Mike's take on Eggman. This is the one casting that Sega and Sonic Team knows they can't change because it is absolutely perfect and the fans would riot for sure. Kyle Hibbert is Big the Cat. He's been voicing Big the Cat since 2010, which I had no idea about. Please don't come after me, but I hated Big's voice too. He sounded like Barney the dinosaur. I was very surprised because Kyle Hibbert has some extensive history in Dragon Ball, another one of my favorite series. But I guess it's like Roger, love him in so many other roles, hate him as Big. The newest voice to join the Sonic series is Sage's Ryan Hartley. Most fans might know her from a few other anime shows and video games. She did some voice work in Marvel's Avengers, but I wasn't really familiar with her work. Regardless, she did an outstanding job and I'm really hoping we'll see her again. As stated previously, the new voice direction was due to the new tone of the game. This is one of the most serious games in a long time for Sonic. It makes complete sense for them to go a slightly different direction when it comes to the voices as well. And it works for the most part. Although I don't like Roger's voice for Sonic, he has the tone down. He sounds snarky at times, sarcastic when he needs to. He really does a great job at conveying emotion through voice. As you talk to the characters, they rope you into helping the Cocos while also sharing how they're feeling with Sonic. Amy wants to share love with the world, Knuckles wants to live a life full of adventure like Sonic does, and Tails wants to grow into his own hero. Amy and Knuckles having those issues wasn't surprising at all, but Tails having his concerns was a major benefit to the story for me. Since 2008's Sonic Unleashed, Tails has been a secondary hero, hiding and cowering, waiting for Sonic to come and save the day. It was a serious downgrade and made no sense as he had saved countless lives in the past. Unfortunately, it only became worse as Sonic Colors and the next decade of games made him a useless character that does nothing but whine and stayed in Sonic's shadows. Not anymore. He declares that he's going to take some time for himself and become his own hero, so go on ahead, Tails. Now, some people didn't like that they called out Tails' past portrayals. Myself, I'm here for it all. Sega and Sonic Team knew the experience and inexperience that both writers had and chose to move forward with them. So, naturally, they have to clean up their mess. And it completely works. I'm so happy that Tails is no longer being a little trick and actually acting for himself. I truly pray that they continue in this direction. When it comes to music, Sonic games have almost always been consistently great. This is for sure a great soundtrack. Like, the music is so great to listen to. Cyberspace is my least favorite part of the game, but I will definitely play it just to be able to listen to the music. Otani did a really good job on this one. Coming off the heels of Forces, there was a lot of skepticism, but he really bounced back. Everybody and their mama loves I'm Here and Vandalize, and honestly, what's not to love? There's no cringe lyrics. Like, the hard rock really works for Sonic Frontiers. Even when in the open zones, the peaceful music is really great to run around to. I honestly have no bad thoughts about the music. It's a solid OST for a solid game, and I'm truly glad that this was one of the areas of improvement for the game. One more slight issue that I have with Sonic Frontiers is the way the difficulty will spike out of nowhere at times. Take the cyberspace levels. Most of them are easy as can be, and all objectives can be completed in 2 runs maybe. I wish they would have shown the S rank time before you went into the stage, but I don't mind having to go back in. However, the crazy difficulty spike on the 2nd level of the game is absolutely ridiculous. It's not impossible, but my gosh, you gotta grind to reach the S rank time. 4-2 is pretty notorious as well, but I'm not too sure why. I don't recall having an issue with that stage. Another part is the puzzles. Before you face the Titans, you have to solve these puzzles. The puzzle on Kronos Island is confusing as can be, but you can get through it. It will take some time, and it's not explained well at all, but it can be done. The puzzle on Ares Island is the easiest of them all for me. It's just picking up large stone spheres and placing them in their respective spots. Truly simple, and once again, you should not have trouble with this, unless you're my brother. The puzzle on Chaos Island is the most absurd puzzle. It's a game of pinball, but you have to get 5 million points. It gets easier as you keep playing, but essentially you have to get a high enough score multiplier in order to actually reach the goal. And it's complete BS the way that they cause you to lose your ball sometimes. I absolutely hated this minigame, along with a lot of the other fans. Rhea Island of course doesn't have a puzzle, so that just leaves Oranos Island. The difficulty comes back down for this island. This puzzle is the bootleg Space Invaders minigame. It's not difficult, especially when you understand how to play and beat it. Except when you go to fight the end. It's a much longer and difficult version of this puzzle without any warning. I don't mind the challenge, but I feel like the difficulty scaling needs to be revamped for sure. There are a lot of things that I like about this game, but there are some things that I would change for sure. Not a lot at all. The biggest change I would make to the game is the ability to go back and fight the Titans again. I'm definitely not alone in wanting that feature, and rightfully so. These are some of, if not the, best supersonic fights in the history of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. Replayability is a big thing for me. If I really like a game, which I really do like Frontiers, then I want to be able to play it over and over. And I don't mean starting a new game and playing it over and over again. This isn't Marvel Spider-Man. The biggest difference between that game and this game is New Game Plus. New Game Plus allows you to start a new game without losing any of the skills or level from your previous save file. It pretty much gives you a leg up on the game, and it'd be perfect for speedrunning Sonic Frontiers. One can only hope that Sonic Team adds this in a future DLC or patch. I would also work on the terrain. I'm not saying that we have to have loop-de-loops all over the place, but more of them, more corkscrews. Do more next game. Make the floating platforms blend in with each island's environment instead of just having them in the air when they look out of place. I understand the islands are mixed with the advanced technology of the ancients, and you can try to think of it as that, but it's really just Sonic Team adding those in at the last minute due to negative feedback about the environment being bland and boring. Definitely fix some of the controls, especially when it comes to grinding and boosting. I can't count the number of times that I would try to switch to another rail while boosting and grinding, and Sonic would just go backwards or get flung off the rail completely. It was so annoying. Cyberspace will get a complete overhaul. I understand that the level designers are different for the most part than the ones they had in Generations and Unleashed. But if I could get cyberspace levels that were as long as Unleashed, as fast as Unleashed, and as fine-tuned as Generations, I would be one happy Sonic fan. I've gone through the game twice now, beaten it 100% and platinumed it on my PS5. Sure, I didn't have fun with the entirety of the game, but even the things I don't like, I can appreciate and respect Sonic Team for trying. At the end of the day, I had a lot of fun and it presented an actual challenge for me. So, what score would I give Sonic Frontiers? For me, it's better than a 7, but I can't give it an 8. We'll go right in the middle at 7.5. I think that's fair and truly represents my outlook for the game. As many missteps as there are in Sonic Frontiers, it's already in my top 5 Sonic games. I have so much fun, and even when I think I'm not going to go back as much, I find myself running around one of the Starfall Islands. I'm extremely excited to see how this evolves in the future. I really hope they don't pull a Sonic Lost World and change up the playstyle for the next game when almost all of the fans are actually happy with this style. Sonic Team regained a lot of my faith with this title, but I still have a bit of skepticism. But what did you all think of Sonic Frontiers? Did you like it? Dislike it? Have you beaten it? On hard mode? Let me know down in the comments below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to catch any streams you might not be able to watch live. Thank you all so much for the support. It truly means a lot. I'll catch y'all on the next Twitch stream. Be breezy.